Some breaking news to bring you now. First, regarding the Duchess of Sussex. She has won her High Court privacy claim against the Mail on Sunday. It was over publication of personal and private, a handwritten letter that she had sent to her estranged father, Thomas Markle. As we know, there are all sorts of cases that the Sussexes have been involved in lately regarding invasion of their privacy as they see it, and this is just one of those cases. In the judgment today, Mr Justice Warby granted the Duchess summary judgment in her claim for misuse of private information. And the judge said the claimant had a reasonable expectation that the contents of the letter would remain private. The Mail articles interfered with that reasonable expectation. He said the only tenable justification for any such interference was to correct some inaccuracies about the letter contained in an article in People magazine, which contained interviews with 5 friends of Meghan Markle. He added, the inescapable conclusion is that, save to the very limited extent I've identified, the disclosures made were not a necessary or proportionate means of serving that purpose. For the most part, they did not serve that purpose, and taken as a whole, the disclosures were manifestly excessive and hence unlawful. That's the judge's comments in delivering that summary judgment, with the Duchess of Sussex winning her High Court privacy claim. Let's go back to our royal correspondent Nicholas Whittle, who was just about to explain how this was a knockout blow for the Duchess of Sussex.
A very considerable victory for the Duchess of Sussex. Now, this is all about the publication by the Mail on Sunday on the 10th of February 2019 of a letter which the Duchess had written to her estranged father, Thomas, described by her lawyers as a heartfelt plea from an anguished daughter to her father. And her lawyers had sought, as I was saying, this summary judgment. They had argued that there is no prospect of the Mail on Sunday defending the privacy aspect of this whole case, and they asked for a judgment from the judge to prevent it going to a full trial. And that is what has come down within the last few minutes from Mr Justice Warby, a very experienced High Court judge on media matters. He has found for Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, he says the claimant had a reasonable expectation that the contents of the letter would remain private. The Mail articles interfered with that reasonable expectation, and he goes on to say there are compelling reasons not to allow this aspect of the case to go to trial. Another aspect of the case concerning copyright will go to trial. He says the court is persuaded that there should be a trial limited to issues relating to the ownership of copyright because there are questions about joint authorship, whether she had any assistance from staff in the royal household to write it, and whether several copyrights had different ownership. But that's very subsidiary. The central issue was the privacy issue, and on that, this is a very, as I say, a very considerable victory for her, in the teeth of considerable anxiety, I think, within the royal household that this could really cause all sorts of trouble, considering that the Mail on Sunday had produced a witness statement from her father at the hearing a few weeks ago, in which Thomas Markle had said, I believed and still believe that Meghan wanted her account of the letter to be published. So Thomas Markle was prepared to come and give evidence on behalf of the Mail on Sunday. So there was the prospect, it won't now occur, but there was the prospect of Meghan Markle and her estranged father, Thomas Markle, meeting across a courtroom at the Royal Courts of Justice sometime in the autumn on this privacy issue. That won't happen, though of course we must wait now to hear whether associated newspapers are going to appeal against this. They could well, they may well try to take it further. But certainly the decision by Mr Justice Warby at the High Court is in favour of Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, on this important issue of privacy. Nick, for the moment, thank you very much. Nicholas Whittle, our royal correspondent. Hello, this is BBC News. I'm Martine Croxall. The headlines. The Duchess of Sussex wins her High Court privacy claim against the Mail on Sunday after it published a letter to her father. Jane, thank you very much for the moment. Back to that breaking news then, that the Duchess of Sussex has won her High Court privacy claim against the Mail on Sunday after it published a letter to her father. Angela Levin is a royal biographer. We can speak to her now. Angela, welcome. How relieved do you think the Sussexes will be that they've got this summary judgment and they're not going to have to go to the court over the privacy section of this claim?
Yes, I think that the Sussexes will only be pleased if they win all the things that they wanted to win. They've won the privacy, but the copyright, the judge has said, has to go to trial, and they will decide whose copyright it is. And so they'll have to wait on that. So I think they will hold back the champagne until they've actually heard that they've won all the aspects of the case. However, it's very interesting that they feel that what the Mail on Sunday did was to use extracts of the letter which were massively too large. Massively too large. That's quite a statement, and therefore unlegal. Illegal, I should say. But the Mail on Sunday have come back and said they may consider appealing. That's just the very latest news, and they feel it's a great shame that they couldn't have a case where all the evidence could have been displayed.
Once again, though, highlights the tensions that there are at times between the press and the royal family.
Yes, I think so. Well, particularly Harry. You know, when I was following him for write his biography, he really didn't like the press. And I said to one of his staff, you know, how will he react to me? And he said, well, he's just beginning to realize that not all the press are awful, which is, you know, some statement. And he hates them. He blames them for his mother's death. He hates photographers. And I think Meghan only likes the press when she is performing and showing herself. This is an actress. She was a minor celebrity, and she was used to photographers taking her picture when she was out somewhere smart. But as a royal, as Prince Harry's told me, he told her many times, you're on show 24/7. And I think she found that very difficult. And she didn't like photographers taking her when she didn't want to be photographed.
And of course, there have been several cases involving the Sussexes at the moment, haven't they? Whereas in the past, often members of the royal family have just chosen not to take legal action. This is rather different.
Very much so. The Queen has a motto that says, don't explain and don't complain. And she doesn't like bringing things into the public domain like that. But Meghan is a very different type of person, and she wants to sue everybody who doesn't do what she feels is right. And Prince Harry has joined her, and he's got several things running through the courts at the moment as well. Of course, they're entitled, if they feel that things have gone wrong, to take them to court. But it is rather sad that in their great happiness and finding freedom, that they are suing people left, right and centre.
Angela Levin, royal biographer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's return to the breaking news that we've had this afternoon, that the Duchess of Sussex has won her High Court privacy claim against the Mail on Sunday after it published a letter to her father. We have a statement now from the Duchess of Sussex. It says, after 2 long years of pursuing litigation, I'm grateful to the courts for holding Associated Newspapers and the Mail on Sunday to account for their illegal and dehumanising practices. These tactics are not new. In fact, they've been going on for far too long without consequence. For these outlets, it's a game. For me and so many others, it's a real life, real relationships and very real sadness. The damage they've done and continue to do runs deep. She goes on to say the world needs reliable, fact-checked, high-quality news. What the Mail on Sunday and its partner publications do is the opposite. We all lose when misinformation sells more than truth, when moral exploitation sells more than decency, and when companies create their business model to profit from people's pain. But for today, with this comprehensive win on both privacy and copyright, we have all won. We now know that and hope it creates legal precedent that you cannot take somebody's privacy and exploit it in a privacy case, as the defendant has blatantly done over the past 2 years. She finishes by saying, I share this victory with each of you because we all deserve justice and truth, and we all deserve better. I particularly want to thank my husband, mum, legal team, and especially Jenny Afia for her unrelenting support throughout this process. So that's the statement from the Duchess of Sussex regarding her privacy claim. But there is a section of her claim regarding copyright of that letter that will still need to go to court. It would seem it hasn't been covered by the summary judgment in her favour handed down today from the High Court. This is BBC News. I'm Martine Croxall. The headlines at 5. The Duchess of Sussex describes her High Court victory against the Mail on Sunday as a comprehensive win for her privacy and says the damage the paper has done continues to run deep. Hello, welcome to BBC News. The Duchess of Sussex has won a High Court privacy claim against the Mail on Sunday over the publication of a letter to her estranged father. The judge said Meghan had a reasonable expectation that the contents of the letter would remain private. In a statement released following the ruling, the Duchess of Sussex said after 2 long years of pursuing litigation, I'm grateful to the courts for holding associated newspapers and the Mail on Sunday to account for their illegal and dehumanising practices. She also says for these outlets, it's a game. For me and so many others, it's real life, real relationships and very real sadness. The damage they have done and continue to do runs deep. A spokesperson for Associated Newspapers said they were surprised and disappointed at the judgment. The Duchess of Sussex has issued a powerful statement. She describes her High Court victory against the Mail on Sunday as a comprehensive win for her privacy and says the damage the paper has done continues to run deep. Let's speak to media lawyer Mark Stevens. Mark, how much of a victory is this for the Duchess?
The Duchess has won very big today. Essentially, she had 2 parts to her claim, the privacy part and the copyright part, that she wrote the letter and therefore owned the copyright. And she's won the whole of the privacy claim. And that's really enough for her because she wants to be able to say, I've been vindicated in bringing this action. The Mail on Sunday should never have published the letter to my father. The judges said it was private and I want to move on with my life. She doesn't need the other part of the case and I'd anticipate she'd drop it as soon as she can. The problem for her in that is that the law of privacy is now in such a state of uncertainty. It's been evolving for more than a decade now. And I think that the newspaper, who obviously don't want to break the law, will need to go to the Court of Appeal to have a more definitive ruling on what the law is going forward. Because you as a journalist will know that essentially you get leaked letters for all the time. And if what you can't effectively report on leaked letters, then in those circumstances, the media holding people to account is going to be hampered. Essentially, this judgment, in its widest context, puts manacles on the media.
This is it, though, isn't it? There's always this tension between freedom of speech and privacy. And most campaigners would argue that free speech has to win out most of the time.
Well, I think they would. And of course, privacy is an essential human right too, as well as freedom of speech. And it's that balancing act that is difficult. And in this particular case, it's been made all the more difficult because for a private letter, you would normally expect it to go from her desk to her father, Thomas's desk, without any intervention. And in this particular case, we know that 4 palace civil servants assisted in the preparation of the letter. Now, if that's right, that tends to indicate that it's a public-facing letter, that it was intended for wider dissemination rather than just being the purely private cri de coeur from a daughter to a father. And so I think, you know, the question has always been the relevance of those kinds of things, whether it was intended to be truly private or whether it was intended to be used in a broader context. And the judge said today, well, I don't mind if it was used in this broader context. It's her letter, it's private, it's up to her who she shows it to or doesn't show it to. And of course, that means that when Thomas Markle wants to reply to what he sees as a curated attack on his reputation, she doesn't say anything. Her friends who've been briefed on the letter tell the American People magazine, and that seems to be okay, even though it's said to be an intensely private letter. And I think there's a a dilemma there which the law hasn't properly addressed yet, and it needs to be addressed because going forward, journalists are going to be leaked letters and they want to know when they can lawfully report and when they can't.
Mark Stevens, thank you very much for talking to us. You're watching BBC News. The headlines this afternoon. The Duchess of Sussex, as we just heard, describes her High Court victory against the Mail on Sunday as a comprehensive win for her privacy and says the damage the paper has done continues to run deep.
Tonight at 6, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, launches a scathing attack on the Mail on Sunday as she wins her High Court battle over privacy. She accuses the paper of illegal and dehumanising practices after a 2-year fight over the publication of a letter she wrote to her estranged father. We'll be getting more reaction from our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell. Also Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, has won her 2-year legal battle with the Mail on Sunday over the publication of a letter she wrote to her estranged father, Thomas Markle, after her wedding to Prince Harry. Today, the High Court ruled that the Duchess had had a reasonable expectation that the letter would remain private. In a statement, she thanked the court for holding the newspaper to account and said the damage the paper had done and continued to do runs deep. Associated newspapers, the publishers of the Daily Mail, Mail on Sunday and Mail Online, said they were surprised and disappointed by the judgment. This report from our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell contains flash photography.
This is a significant victory for the Duchess of Sussex. Meghan, strongly supported by her husband Prince Harry, has shown herself to be absolutely determined, robustly to defend her right to privacy. This case began after the Mail on Sunday published lengthy extracts from a letter she'd written in late 2018 to her estranged father Thomas. Her lawyers told the High Court that the letter was a heartfelt plea from an anguished daughter. They applied for what's known as a summary judgment by a High Court judge on the basis, they said, that the Mail on Sunday could have no defence to the allegations of breach of privacy. They said a full trial was not necessary, and the judge has agreed. Mr. Justice Warby examined the evidence and found, taken as a whole, the disclosures published by the newspaper were manifestly excessive and hence unlawful. There is no prospect that a different judgment would be reached after a trial, he said. There is still the prospect of a trial on the narrower issue of copyright infringement, but privacy is the main issue, and on that the finding is fully in Meghan's favour. In a statement, she spoke about what she said were the tactics of the Mail Group's newspapers. For these outlets, it's a game, she said. For me and so many others, it's real life, real relationships, and very real sadness. The damage they have done and continue to do runs deep. The Mail on Sunday's publishers said they were very surprised by the judgment. They said they would decide in due course whether to lodge an appeal. And first reaction from media lawyers.
The Duchess has won very big today. Essentially, she had two parts to her claim, the privacy part and the copyright part, that she wrote the letter and therefore owned the copyright. And she's won the whole of the privacy claim. And that's really enough for her.
For the Queen and the other senior royals, there will be great relief. The prospect of a full trial on the privacy issue, in which Meghan Markle and her father, Thomas Markle, would have been pitted against each other as the star witnesses, has been averted.
And Nick is with me now. Would it be fair to say that Buckingham Palace wasn't quite sure which way this was going to go?
I think that's absolutely right, and I think there will be just the most immense relief. They will be pleased for Meghan, of course, that she's won on the privacy issue. It's a salutary lesson, really, on the privacy issue. But I think that the palace, the royal family, will have been utterly appalled at the prospect of a full-blown court case in which Meghan Markle would have been cross-examined in the witness box, in which Thomas Markle would have appeared as the star witness on behalf of the Mail on Sunday, and all the family tensions would have come out. Now, Associated newspapers say they are disappointed that they've been denied the chance to test the evidence in open court. They are considering an appeal. But Mr. Justice Warby's findings on privacy are really very clear. The claimant, in this 53-page judgment here, the claimant had a reasonable expectation that the contents of the letter would remain private. The Mail articles interfered with that reasonable expectation. And he goes on to say there is no prospect that a different judgment would be reached after a trial. So in terms of media law, in terms of privacy law, this is, I think, as I say, a pretty salutary lesson for the British media.
Nick Witchell, thank you.